Hi, this is Pat McDonald, your host for Vote for Vermont, where our tagline is Listening Beyond the Soundbites. This is a very special show today, and I'm honored to have two awesome guests. William Bill Matroon, who is a retired Chief Warrant Officer. Get that right?
Correct.
Yes, I did. And Representative Michael Morgan, who's from Grand Isle, Chittenden, and he is a retired colonel. And we are here to talk about Torpedoman Henry Breault, who is the recipient of the Medal of Honor, and what an amazing story this gentleman has. So we're very honored. And what's really amazing, gentlemen, welcome to the show, by the way, today is March 8th.
Correct.
And until I did the research, we just happened to have picked this day.
This was the day.
This was the day 100 years ago that the Torpedoman Henry Breault was awarded the Medal of Honor, and that's what we are talking about by President Calvin Coolidge. So how much Vermont can you get? This is so cool.
For sure, Pat. It's interesting you brought that up, because we would have, had we been in session and not off for town meeting week, this would have been the day I picked.
Yeah. No,
I chose to go a week later to do the resolution on the House floor to keep the proximity as close as we could.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's quite all right. This is very exciting. So I'm going to ask you to tell a little bit about yourself and your service. And thank you both very much for your service.
You bet. So yes, Michael Morgan. I'm a state representative currently in my second term. My district is Grand Isle, Chittenden, which encompasses the northwestern corner of Milton and all of Grand Isle County. So represent overall 6 different towns. Probably one of the geographically largest House districts in the state. Prior to that, I'm retired from 38 years in the military, of active duty in the Air Force, and then spent 9 years there, and then 29 years in the Air National Guard here in Vermont, retiring back in 2017, so almost 7 years ago I retired.
Great.
And retired at the rank of colonel.
Thank you. That's excellent. What a great background. And you're on House Gov Ops, right?
Yes, I'm on the House Government Operations and Military Affairs Committee, which is a good fit for me with my years of military service.
For sure.
And then I'm a selectman in my town of Milton, have been for a number of years, so I have that local government nexus as well.
Good for you. Well, Milton's a great town. We know a few folks from Milton who have served. Don Turner, of course, so we all know Don. But anyway, thank you. Bill, welcome.
You're welcome.
Nice to see you again.
Good to see you again.
Yes. Good to be seen, right?
That's right.
We're just talking about age. But anyway, Bill, could you talk a little bit about your background and how we know each other, which I think is cool.
Well, we'll start out how we know each other.
Yeah, well, there you go.
From the USS Vermont Commissioning Committee. We did a couple of programs on that.
Yep.
And my background, I was raised in Chelsea, Vermont, graduated from high school there, went to Champlain College. Ended up going into the Navy in 1966, and then into the submarine service. I was in the submarine service. I made 4 deterrent patrols on Fleet ballistic missile submarines. Got out, came back, worked for Rock of Ages Corporation for a year, and decided to go back into service and went in the Coast Guard, and retired from the Coast Guard after 30 years of service.
Good for you.
W4.
Excellent.
And, through some old friendships, one of the members of the United States Submarine Veterans Incorporated, which is the Green Mountain Base chapter, happened to be a shipmate. And was the commander of the Green Mountain Base submarines, and that's how I ended up with the, and now I'm the commander of the Green Mountain Base submarine group here in Vermont. There's about 60, 70 of us here in Vermont that belong to the group. So
very exciting. Thank you both very much. I feel very honored to be here. So as we said, today is the 100th anniversary for awarding of the Medal of Honor. And Michael, you wrote a resolution, which obviously, how did this all come about? Because how did you know the honoree, and how did you know Bill? And
so it's kind of an interesting, I think I'll try to get it right here, is that, so it all started by a gentleman by the name of Brian Walker, who, by the way, is going to try to come here from out of state. I believe he's planning to attend next Friday's
on the 15th,
House floor resolution reading and participate in the event. Back last, late fall, early winter, shot me an email saying, hey, Rep. Morgan, I understand your district represents the town of Grand Isle, Vermont, because Henry Breault had a nexus to, that's where he enlisted, was in the town of Grand Isle, Vermont. And I wanted to alert you to this, and it unfolded from there. I can't quite remember how we got woven into each other on that bill, but I think it was because of the submariners group, and then we talked. But it was, and just one kind of interesting thing in there. The gentleman I ran as a running mate back in 2022 for the House, it's a 2-seat district that I represent,
Right.
owns a farm called Ridgecrest Farms. On Henry Breault's enlistment certificate, it says place of enlistment, Ridgecrest Farms,
Whoa.
Grand Isle, Vermont.
Interesting.
So it appears 2 or 3 owners prior owned Ridgecrest Farms where Henry Breault, for whatever reason we don't know because we don't have all the history on it, was residing there, or at least had a connection there, and that became the place where he enlisted. So it's kind of a neat little gee whiz fact in there.
For sure.
And yeah, I got with using some of Ryan's words, got with Legislative Council because they're the ones that ultimately compose our resolutions that we have. And at some point, if we want to read through it, we can. But
Yes, I'd love to have you read something. I just wanted
Sure.
to ask Bill, can you tell us about the ceremony? You made reference to it. It's next Friday at the State House.
Next Friday.
And everybody's invited, for sure.
Everybody who can make it, especially encouraging, the Green Mountain submarine base veterans are planning on being there, as many as they can. Any Navy personnel or any military personnel.
Right.
I did have contact with the officer in charge at the Coast Guard station up in Burlington, and he's planning on being there.
Excellent.
And there's a contingent of, as far as we know right now, of Torpedoman coming up from the submarine base in New London.
Great.
To be here to honor him.
And what time will this be?
It's at the 15th at 9:30 in the morning.
Correct.
And hopefully, a good gathering to show support.
And will it be at the Well of the House or the Cedar Creek Room?
It'll be the Well of the
In the Well
House.
of
So
the
it'll be part of. They will read it prior to announcements, if you would,
Right,
and then
right.
I will get up. Once they've read it, I will hop up right after that and be recognized, and then
Great.
I'll have a few words crafted that will kind of re-encapsulate everything that was said in the resolution, and maybe a couple of the interesting factoids, like I just said about the place of
Right.
enlistment
Excellent.
and so forth. So as far as is it a big gala ceremony? No, but it's an important ceremony,
Right.
and it's getting recognition there in the Well of the House, in the public eye, and I think maybe through some of Bill's efforts there, with a little luck, will be some newspaper media as well as not photography, but video
Right,
media there
Right, yeah,
as well.
ORCA will be
TV
there. We
channels.
arranged that, so we'll be there.
Yeah.
That's great. And maybe we can interview the author here who started this.
I'm sure he'll be glad to talk to you.
Love it.
He's very much a big part of this, and very much excited, I guess would be the word.
I
Very
bet.
excited for this to occur.
That's great.
Just to go back a little bit, how did we get connected? It was Ryan Walker.
Oh, okay.
That's
Who's the author?
I
can't remember
forget.
his name.
Too many brain bites
Yeah,
ago.
He emailed me and said, "Do you realize that there's going to be a resolution read on the House floor, and Representative Michael Morgan is going to do this?" And I said, "No, I had not heard about it." So I contacted Michael, and so we've connected there, and we've done an
right.
effort getting the word out through the newspapers and stuff. And surprisingly, Henry is being featured in a book
Yeah.
called "The Silent Service's First Hero."
That's great.
It's a book that's going to be released this summer by Ryan Walker. So
That's great.
Yeah, and
it features Henry.
Yeah, that's mentioned there. And then what doubles down on the coolness of this whole thing is the Medal of Honor is generally presented almost always by the President of the United States, and in 1924 that was Calvin Coolidge.
Exactly, and we know Calvin Coolidge, speaking of Vermont. That's
yes.
really great. Michael, could you read a little bit, or maybe read the resolution? It's not
Sure.
all that
Sure.
long.
Yeah, it's a quick read. It just starts out, House Concurrent Resolution commemorating the centennial of U.S. Navy Torpedoman, second class, Henry Breault becoming the first submariner to receive the Medal of Honor. And then it goes on to offer all the people that I got to sign on as sponsors. I won't read
A
that.
lot of people, may I say.
Yeah, I was just the sprinkling. I could have probably gotten virtually
Everybody,
everybody.
I
I
bet,
don't,
for
nobody
sure.
that would have had any objection to that. And it reads, whereas the Medal of Honor is the U.S. military's highest recognition is awarded for acts of extraordinary valor while serving our nation, and whereas Henry Breault had a long naval career, first as a member of the Royal Navy Canadian Volunteer Reserve during World War I, and subsequently from 1920 to 1941 as a submariner in the U.S. Navy who enlisted in Grand Isle and is designated in the U.S. Naval Records as a Vermonter, and whereas October 28, 1923, Henry Breault was stationed on the USS O5, which while in transit through the Panama Canal collided with the steamship Abengaraz, a commercial vessel, causing the nearly immediate sinking of the submarine. And whereas nearly all the personnel on board the submarine, including Henry Breault, were able to escape, but Breault, on the verge of jumping overboard to safety himself, returned to the torpedo room to rescue a trapped fellow submarine mate, closing the torpedo hatch after him. And whereas 31 hours later, a salvage party was able to rescue both men, and Henry Breault's selfless bravery resulted in President Calvin Coolidge awarding him the Medal of Honor on March 8, 1924, making him the first submariner and to this day the only enlisted submariner so recognized. And whereas naval historian Ryan Walker has since written a book entitled The Silent Service's First Hero, the first submariner to receive the Medal of Honor, and Henry Breault's story was also the subject of an exhibit at the Submarine Force Library and Museum in Groton, Connecticut. Now therefore be it resolved by the House and Senate and the House of Representatives that the General Assembly commemorates the centennial of U.S. Navy Torpedoman Second Class Henry Breault becoming the first submariner to receive the Medal of Honor, and be it further resolved that the Secretary of State be directed to send a copy of this resolution to the Submarine Force Library and Museum and to Ryan Walker.
Great, that's great. And the museum is in Groton. And,
Yes.
yeah, which is, I don't know that you know this, my father, during World War II, taught the submarine school in Groton. He was in the Navy, and that's what he did, so...
Wow.
So
What a
I should
connection.
be, huh?
What a connection.
Well, that's one of the reasons I joined, just because, I thought that was pretty cool. I've been looking for his books, because we were just talking before. I bet they teach it a little differently, because we're on this group that supports the USS Vermont, which is a nuclear-powered submarine, so a little different than what my dad was used to, I think. But could you, Bill, talk a little bit about the importance of the Medal of Honor, what it signifies, and what it's all about?
Well, the Medal of Honor is the highest recognition that's given to a military individual. There are 4 different types of the Medal of Honor, one for the Army, one for the Navy and Marine Corps, and let's see, one for the Air Force, I believe.
Air Force, right?
Yeah, those are the 3 types.
Every service has it.
Out of 40 million service members that have served, less than 4,000 have ever received the Medal of Honor.
Wow.
So when you look at that percentage-wise, it's like 1/10,000th of a percent.
Right.
So it does have very high standards. The standards changed substantially, I think, after World War II or during World War II. There was that period between the Civil War and World War II. There was about 130 individuals that received the Medal of Honor for various things, including Henry, during peacetime. So, which is kind of unusual.
Right.
I don't think there's ever been one since World War II given during peacetime to any member. So most of them have been.
Interesting. And always at the White House. I mean,
The
what an
president,
amazing ceremony that must be.
Yes.
the last Medal of Honor that was presented was in 2023. 2023, I said. I think around September. That was the last Medal of Honor that was presented.
Wow. Could you repeat, I'm going to write this down, how many, you gave us the number of sailors, soldiers, and how many Medal of Honor?
Out of 40 million
40 million,
service members that have served,
right?
I believe it's 3,500 and odd numbers
Yeah.
that actually
Wow.
received the Medal of Honor. So I said it's very high standards.
Yeah, for sure.
In fact, Henry's Medal of Honor, he was recommended for the Navy Cross, which is pretty hard to achieve. And as it was going up through the review process, one of the admirals that was reviewing it upgraded it to the Medal of Honor, and said, you know, it's which is really something. And he did. I mean, you know, he risked his life to go back and save a
fellows,
shipmate.
yeah.
That's a lot of courage. How many of us would do that?
Right.
Yeah,
That's really
and sadly, of that 3,500 plus people who received the Medal of Honor, I don't have a percentage, but as Bill would know, it's a good number of those got those posthumously. They died doing
trying,
the effort.
right.
The effort, their last valiant effort they did was what earned them the Medal of Honor, and they pulled, as Abraham Lincoln said, they paid the ultimate sacrifice, gave the last measure of devotion to their
Without
country.
thinking, they just did it.
A classic example, and I can't try to remember if he did get the Medal of Honor out of it, but of all of us that watched Lone Survivor was Michael Murphy.
Right, exactly.
He knew that making that call from that top of that rock outcropping was going to
Right.
cost him his life, but nevertheless did it at, I think, around the ripe old age of 27 to 30 years old.
Now, you and I were talking before that Henry went on, after he received the medal, went on to serve, and nobody
Yes.
knew that they
Yeah.
were among, could you talk a little
Yes,
bit
yeah,
about
let me
that?
just pull up this email that I got from Ryan Walker, and again, this gentleman has done just an astounding amount of historical stuff on this, and he said in a very long email to me yesterday, he said, "One thing I'll note, I've come to the firm belief that Breault made an effort to remain anonymous. I think he just wanted to be a good sailor more than anything else, eschewing any fame or status that he could have had. There are boats he served on that were show-me boats that broke records, yet none of them discussed the Medal of Honor recipient on board. So that may also explain why finding his connection to anywhere, as I'm sure this is difficult for other states, as he had connections too. So he, just because of a lot of his anonymity
Right.
on his own part, he didn't want that to be a big deal. Yeah, and I can remember when I was at the Air Force Academy as a cadet, and it was found out later after long I'd been gone that amongst us there was a gentleman who was a custodian there, and he had been a Medal of Honor recipient, never spoke a word of it.
Wow.
Many of these people are just very humble people that did
Right.
valiant things.
Just
in
doing their
service.
job, as they
They would
say.
tell you they were doing their job,
Yeah.
but, and I believe I have it correct, and you can back me on this, Bill, is, let's take Henry Breault, receiving that Medal of Honor, when they're wearing that, a 4-star general salutes that individual. I believe that's customary.
It is customary that whoever receives the Medal of Honor is given a salute. It's not required,
Correct.
but
It's customary.
It's customary and it's an
Respectful.
honor and respectful.
Yeah.
Which, talking about the Medal of Honor and doing a little bit of research, I found that the youngest
Oh, this is
Medal
a
of
great
Honor
story.
winner, it's a little bit off the subject from here,
No, that's okay.
was 13 years old, and he was from Vermont. So that's really substantial. Vermont does have a unique connection to
Yes.
the Medal of Honor.
Do you have the story of this young man? Because I'm assuming it was Civil War. He was.
It was during the Civil
drummer,
War.
right?
He was from, I believe, Ennisburg.
We're on the border of Canadian border.
Or Irisburg, I think it was.
Well, Iris, we're a little
And,
further down.
13 years old, he was a drummer, and I think the 3rd Regiment, Vermont Regiment, and they were in a battle, and a lot of them, I guess they were being overrun.
Right.
And a lot of them dropped their weapons, their drums, or whatever they had, and he hung on to his drum.
Wow.
And it was, for that age and to be that.
Did you remember
Yeah.
where this was? Gettysburg or Cedar Creek?
It
or-
happened down around Richmond, Virginia.
Oh, okay.
When,
Oh,
when,
right,
when the
right.
battle
Yeah,
was. So.
There's something. We used to camp at Gettysburg for years, 4 years, and wherever you go, there's a battlefield, and of course Gettysburg is just
It's very,
phenomenal. But Virginia's
nice.
got a lot of areas where there was battles.
But,
there were.
That's great. I'll have to look him up too.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
So, and the 25th of March, I believe, is the Medal of Honor Day.
Oh, really?
And which it was law was passed, I think, during the Bush's administration to honor the Medal of Honor winners and
That's
to
great.
recognize them for their sacrifices.
Excellent.
You mentioned about how many Medal of Honors were
Posthumously
awarded
awarded.
after, and so over 600.
600 were posthumously
Over
awarded.
600,
Wow.
yes.
That's sobering to me.
God bless. Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
600 men just did what they.
Took one for the team, as they
Yeah,
say.
right, exactly.
Jumped on the grenade, so to
Yeah.
speak. Yeah.
That's great. So
Yeah.
before we end the show, we're going to follow it once the ceremony takes place next week, the reading of the resolution. We will include that in the show so people will hear. Who is going to read the resolution?
It'll be read by one of the clerks of the House,
Oh,
is how
okay.
it's done.
Yeah.
And then what I would do, they would generally bump it right up against announcements, and then the speaker would ask, are there any announcements? And that's when I would stand up, get
Right.
recognized, because they'll know that I'm going to want to do that.
Right.
And so I would be the first person she would recognize to say, member from Milton, and then I'm gonna, between now and a week from now, I'll type up a little thing that I'll probably run by Bill, so we're all on the same page
great.
to,
And
probably
recognize some
Ryan.
of the people that are
Yes.
there,
Yep.
like your
Yep,
organization.
absolutely. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yes.
And could you just repeat again what day this is? And-
So it will be next Friday, March 15th at 9:30 in the morning is when the House floor, session starts. So it's one of those things that anybody who wants to go should be in place by 9:15, either in the gallery or the balcony of the House.
That's great. Gentlemen, anything else you'd like to say as final words before we end the show? And hope people show up next week.
Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thank you for that
You have no
recognition.
idea. I'm on the verge of tears.
Yeah, it's yeah, and another quote. I'm a quotes guy. I love quotes. Abraham Lincoln had a comment during the Civil War. He said, "God must have loved the common man, for he made a lot of them."
One thing I
And
will
this, so excuse me. So what are the words they say? It's uncommon valor.
Right.
It's just
Right.
there's no other way to
Right,
describe it.
For sure. Bill?
on the USS Vermont, when I realized that Henry had received the Medal of Honor, having made a tour through the Submarine Museum in New London, Connecticut, or Groton, Connecticut, and if anybody ever have a chance to go down
Yeah.
there, it's
Amazing.
amazing. Saw Henry, and I encouraged the chief of the boat, the XO, and
Right.
the CO before the commissioning of the USS Vermont to name the torpedo room after Henry, and they did.
Excellent.
I was just about to say
I
that.
love it.
So the torpedo room on the USS Vermont has
Right.
been named in honor of Henry.
Well, there's a
Breault.
lot of things on the USS Vermont that's been named for Vermont.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Lots of all their bunks, all the places where they eat, and
And they call the sub affection what? Big Sugar.
Big Sugar.
Big
that's it,
Sugar.
the Big Sugar.
Big Sugar.
Yeah.
Exactly.
After maple syrup.
We're actually planning to do a full-length show about the beginning and up to now where the ship is in Pearl Harbor to
Yeah.
bring everybody up to speed. Anyway, gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on
Thank you for
today.
having
I
us.
can't thank you for your service. I just thank you. This is Pat McDonald, your host for Vote for Vermont, where our tagline is listening beyond the soundbite.